Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of IVDP Simplified. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the subjects offered in the fifth subject group, which is your maths. We also have a set of guest speakers who will be talking about their experiences with the different subjects in this group. So, as always, we're very excited. So, let's begin.
Today we have Henna Parekh with us, who is a, a maths AISL student. So welcome Henna to our podcast.
Hi, so glad to be here.
How do you manage your time after you get home? And so tell me.
Okay. If maths is a subject where only way you can increase your grades or like get good grades is by practicing. And again, like if maths is not your subject at all, then you need to make sure that you take out at least 1 hour of your time every single day and practice whatever you did in class, because that's the only way you're going to improve. And trust me, I learned that the hard way. So I think once you come back from school, everything you've done in class, you should be practicing it at home. So yeah.
Uh, Tell me the different concepts that you guys have covered in maths AISL up till now.
Okay, so up till now, we've covered functions like entirely. So that includes exponential, cubic, we've done trig, linear, quadratic modeling, trig modeling. We've done variations, and right now we started statistics. So as of now, we are almost done with statistics, and then I think we're gonna
Right.
do probability.
Okay, so given that you also have your HL subjects now, um, how do you manage maths with your HL subjects?
Okay, so one of my HL subjects is psychology, and that is definitely a very difficult subject. So when I have a math summative along with psych, that I make sure that I need to make sure that I takes at least 1.5 hour to practice, because otherwise it's, as I said, it's not going to um, help, is you're not going to improve in any way if you don't practice. That's the only thing you have to do to make sure you get a good grade.
Okay, so and finally, I just wanted to ask you if you wanted to say something else about maths AISL and yeah.
Okay. One thing I would like to say is that if you have taken AISL, um, make sure you don't have that mindset that AISL is, since it's the lowest level of man, that doesn't mean that you're not good at anything else. It's okay to have your strengths and weaknesses. You might be good at another subject, and that everyone has their own reasons for why they've taken AISL. Some people might not need it in the future. Some people aren't good at it, and that's completely okay. So if you have that mindset right now, just make sure that it's like, just know that it's not a bad thing. It's completely okay. And yeah, all the best for DP. Don't worry, y'all are going to do fine.
That was very well put, Hannah. Thank you for being here. Today we have Kathit, who is an ASL student, and welcome Kathit to our show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Okay, so tell me about your ASL and your experience in ASL.
I'm a student who dropped from ASL to ASL, and I almost instantly could feel the decrease in the amount of work we had to do and the severity of the topics. Like in AHL, the amount of work and the really fast pace of each class is nothing compared to is a lot compared to ASL, because in the ASL classes we get to spend a lot of time on each small topic as well, since we get more time to strengthen the basis of the topics, and even the extent of the topics that we go into are much less compared to AHL. But however, this doesn't mean that we don't have to memorize a lot of formulas and keep practicing, because uh, practice is key in any math. So yeah.
Okay. So now, like you talked about how in ASL they focus on minute details and you have more time to actually get used to the concept.
Yeah.
So tell me what AASL actually expects from its students, and yeah, what is the major difference between the expectations of a AHL student and a AASL student?
So I would say that, see, in AAHL, it's really the extent of the topic that you go into. So in AHL, you go a lot deeper into the topic. There's a lot more
Yeah.
components you need to
Yeah.
remember. So what they expect from you in AHL is to be able to apply the vast knowledge of all the depths
Mhm.
on the paper. However, I think in ASL they focus on the more basic parts of the topic, but they expect you to have it really, really strong.
Yeah.
So they'll ask confusing questions on the basic concepts themselves, and unlike AHL, they won't go into the depth of the topic. Like they won't, for example, we just had a topic on trigonometry, right?
Yeah.
And even calculus. So there are certain functions like arcsine, arctan. These are really confusing, and these are higher level functions. These would be asked about in AHL, but they won't be that deep. However, in ASL, we focused on the basic functions like sine, cos, tan, but we were asked about it in a really good depth and in a more confusing manner.
Yeah. Okay, so you talked about the pace of maths A, and obviously, you talked about your time and how you have to invest more time in your studies as compared to MYP. Now, tell me, how do you manage your time? Well, obviously, there's been a huge transition.
So, what I do is, for me mostly, I usually have tuitions straight after school.
Mhm.
So once I'm back home from tuition, I like to take a small break because it gets too
Yeah.
hectic and I might get burned out. So I like to take a break to myself. Then once I'm done with the break, I start by studying the I start by studying the topic which I have a test of in the most like in the
Yeah.
the most recent subject that I might have a test of. So I like to focus on that. So I study for that subject for about an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours,
Yeah.
and then I switch to a lot of project work that we have in grade 11 because we have stuff like EE, CAS, TOK, and even subjects like design, which are ongoing summatives.
Yep.
So I like to we have to ensure that we give those time as well because those are the ones that people most commonly overlook because they think since it's ongoing we have a long time, but you never know when the deadline approaches and you haven't done any work. So I like to give that time as well. And of course, a lot of the revision is also covered in tuitions. So tuitions also act as study hours only for me. But the important part is to take a break for yourself. So I like to take an hour break as soon as I'm home from whether it be tuition or school. And then I continue my studies. And then I go down again for a walk or to just hang out with friends in my building for about half an hour just to clear my head. And something that you won't get a lot of in DP is sleep as well because you have to work till late night sometimes and wake up early in school. But if you can manage your time really well, then you can also sleep on time and get enough sleep.
Uh-huh. Okay. So, obviously, thank you for your time. And anything else that you would like to add?
No, I don't think there's anything specific to add except for MYP to DP is a really huge jump. So I think in the summer break that comes between MYP to DP, if the MYP batch who is transitioning to a diploma program, they should probably spend a lot of time getting their bases really hard, getting their bases really prepared by working hard in the summer break because it's a huge, huge jump because MYP just scratches the surface for a lot of things. But as soon as you go into DP, it becomes really, really deep and you have to start focusing on a lot more on each single topic. So for a lot of students, it gets really overwhelming and the first semester of 11th grade goes really, really bad. So instead of having fun and wasting time in the summer break, use it to prepare yourself for diploma program.
Okay. Thank you so much, Karthik. We really appreciate your presence here.
Thanks for having me. Goodbye.
Okay, so now I have Ayan Kedia from grade 11, and he'll be talking about his experience in the subject AIHL, which is a math AIHL, which is application and interpretation at higher level. So, hi, Ayan, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Hi, Dhruv. Thank you for having me. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you so much. Okay, so Ayan, before we start off, so the first question that I would like to ask you is, can you tell us just a bit about AIHL as a subject? What is it about, and what all do you study in the subject?
So obviously, maths AIHL, I think one of the most important things to understand about this subject is that it's revolves around real life application. So in MYP, you all must be knowing about criteria D, for example, how we focus on the real life application. So the main thing about this subject is teaching us the concepts and primarily how the concept can be applied in the real life. So, like for example, through questions and all, different questions present different scenarios. Then you have to work on understanding how to use the concept you've learned in different scenarios in the real world. So therefore, this subject, one of the main things about this subject is it teaches maths from a very holistic perspective of idea of how we can apply it in the future as well for in different situations.
Okay, thank you for that, Ayan. So my next question to you is, can you tell us a bit about how AIHL is different from AAHL from what you've understood so far?
Yeah, so building on my point from the first question, my response to that. So that is one of the defining differences between AHL and AIHL as well. Because AHL, if you look at the way that teach, it's very math focused. So it's very math specific. So there's basically question focus only on the different math concepts and only revolve around the concepts specifically. There must be a few parts where they also focus on the real life application, but then AIHL mainly revolves around real life application, few parts of direct,
Okay, thank you for
which
that.
is
Oh,
opposite of how it works in AIHL.
right.
And also, just one more thing to add.
Yeah,
One of the things is the use of calculators much more prominent in AIHL as
right.
compared
Yeah,
to AHL.
right. Okay, so can you tell us how like how have you been able to, so I'm in your class obviously and I know you're doing really well in the subject, so what are some of the tips you would give to the people who are about to enter DP and who have selected AIHL for how to really enjoy this class, learn their best, and how to do well in their class?
I think what's most important is you build your foundation very strong. Because as I said, AIHL is all about applying the concepts in different situations. So, and they ask the questions from different angles, not like just find the direct answer. They could give you the answer and ask you to find one of the variables from the that is part of the answer. So it's very important that you build your foundation around the concept and understand the concept extremely well. And
Right,
then after that, uh, after you understood the concept, it's really important to do a lot of practice because a lot of practice means that you'll do multiple different types of sums and many sums so that therefore you can understand what type of questions can be asked to you and
right,
what and which situations can they actually apply this concept in. So therefore, when it comes to your assessments, you can really have a rough knowledge of how they can frame the questions and understand the way the framing works and what are they asking you
right.
specifically.
So basically, since the maths is all about real life application, the application part can get really confusing because they can have word problems, right? So that's why the practice will be helpful. Okay. And finally, so you did speak a bit about this already. You spoke about how AIHL is more related to criteria D. Uh, how else would you say, if maybe like content related, how else does AIHL add upon or build upon what you've already learned in MYP?
So I think MYP for a few topics, especially, it provides a really good base. It provides a really good base for students. So, for example, we've done functions so far, and if you take functions in MYP, I'm pretty sure you must have covered quadratic functions, if not more. And we build upon this concept of quadratic functions when we learn about trigonometric functions, cubic functions, and things like that. So
Right.
the MYP provides a really strong base. So the link between the uh, maths and MYP DP is essentially that and then we only build upon the concepts. It's not like there must be few completely new concepts as well, but the primary most of the content being covered is actually a build upon what you've already done in MYP.
Okay. Thank you, Jan. And my final question to you is, what is your one piece of advice that you would give to our juniors who are about to enter DP soon? It could be about DP overall or AIHL? Like your one piece of advice that you wish someone had given to you.
I think one piece of advice I would give in general about DP, and you can apply this to maths as well, is that try to get a head start as much as possible. Because especially if taking maths at a higher level, the pace is extremely fast. There's no break time at all. There's no breathing room because there's a lot of content to cover. So the teachers are forced to move very fast. So it will be really helpful for you if you can maybe possibly in the summer break between 10th and 11th, obviously enjoy your summer break since it's a break, but also try to find some time where you can slowly cover the basics of the concept of DP, so that therefore you can get a head start to this. And also while you're on DP, it's really important that you organize yourself very well and manage your time very well,
Right.
because you have a lot of subjects at the same time. Then you have things like CAS, TOK, extended essay, all of this going on together. So it's really important you organize yourself and dedicate sufficient time, and not just procrastinate towards the end of the summative and then just focus on that summative for that time. So
Right.
therefore, it's really important you organize yourself and manage your time well.
Right. I completely agree with you on that, Ayan, and that's it for today. Thank you so much for the time and effort you've given. Your feedback was really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so now we have Anandani Mitra from grade 11, and for her group 5 subject, she's taken Math AAHL, Analysis and Approaches HL, and now we'll just be asking her a few questions about her experience so far and what all she recommends, etc. So, hi Anandani, first, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. So, Anandani, you've taken AAHL, right? And so far, can you tell us a bit about the concepts that you guys have covered and what all you expect to cover in the future in your subject?
Okay, so the structure of Math AHL is that there are 5 different topics ranging from numbers and algebra, functions, geometry and trigonometry, statistics and probability, and calculus. So at the beginning of the year, we start off with the base knowledge that you would have gained from your MYP Extended Mathematics in grade 10, and then you take that forward into functions. Okay, even though that is not the first topic listed in our IBDP subject sort of brief, you start off with functions. You start off with paper 1 and paper 2 assessments, and these ones are very similar to our MYP structured assessments, so it's an
Okay.
easier transition for you.
Got it.
And then we cover geometry and trigonometry, and you can expect that the unit structure is sort of different. And MYP, you know that yes, we're going to spend maybe 1 or 2 months per unit, and then have your summatives, and then move on to your next unit.
Right.
Here, everything overlaps. And currently we are still on the second topic. We have just finished functions, and
Okay.
now we are sort of, merging it with geometry and trigonometry. So
Okay.
it's not flexible in a way, it's just that it's all cohesive.
Okay. So, how would you link AA to MYP? So maybe certain aspects of MYP, certain criterias that you see more evident in AAHL, what would those be?
I think for me, if you are a student who is excellent in criterion A, which is knowledge and understanding for
Okay.
your maths, you will have a seamless transition into Math AHL. Because I'm sure that you have heard the comparisons that Math AHL is all, conceptual, and you just need to know the formulas and
Right.
be able to apply it. And it is partly that, but you have to understand that the questions are much more challenging. So if you have that thinking, if you have that criterion A skill set, you will be able to do this.
Okay.
And for people who might not be that great at criteria D, which is your real life application, you don't have to worry too much about applying it in Math AA,
Okay.
because the problems themselves are trying to look at your critical thinking. They're not trying to look at your application skills.
Right. Okay. That's a good way to put it. So, you talked about certain skills that we might need. So, right now you spoke about the math specific skills. What would you recommend in terms of ATL skills? What ATL skills do you think are the most helpful, and which ones should students look at developing if they want to pursue AAHL?
I think the skills that you really need, especially in terms of ATL, is first of all self management. At least if you
Okay.
really want to commit yourself, this is not something where the formula booklet will give you all the answers. You
Right.
need to put in that extra mile and extra effort into it and say, because I see many of my peers struggling currently, because if you just stick to the base formulas and you don't go above, if you don't investigate, if you don't have that spark of inspiration that, you know what, I see this relationship, I see these formulas coming up, but they're not the formal formulas taught by IB.
Right.
Put in that effort. That
Okay.
is one main thing, especially in some topics where you know it's very formula, heavy based, like trigonometry. Okay.
Right.
If you don't know your unique identities, then you will never be able to connect it immediately into the summatives.
Got it. Thank
And
you.
then in terms of like math skills and such, it's sort of interpreting the data that you have. And I'm not talking about statistical data, it's about understanding the question.
Right.
In criteria A, you will know that you will have the direct questions asked. There are no word problems framed around it, there's no situation around it. But here, what happens? Sometimes it's asking you in sub parts, it's asking you to build upon your previous things. You have error carry forward in case you have mistakes. So you have to understand what the question is asking you and then know which formulas to apply.
Okay. So, just a note for our listeners here. You may have heard Nandini mention the term error carry forward. In case you don't know what that means, is it's often referred to as ECF. What that means is, let's say there's a question with 5 subparts to it, and in part A you get an answer wrong. Maybe your method was correct, but your final answer was wrong, and then you use that final answer to answer the question in part B. Now, let's say the complete method in part B was wrong, but because your answer in part A was wrong, your final answer in part B was also wrong. You'll still get some points for part B because your method was correct, so that error carry forward points to continue. So, yeah. So now, Anandani, we'll be moving to some more generic questions, some questions that our listeners said that they had. One major question that they had was, how do you manage your time, since maths is an HL subject that you've
Yes.
taken? And how do you balance it out with the other aspects of both studying and the other aspects of your life as well?
If you're currently in grade 10, I would advise you to start working during the summer vacation, okay?
Okay.
Because you will find the subject briefs for every PP subject online or even on the IBO website. It's all there. The resources are there. You have to dedicate that time, okay? I got ahead of the curve during summer vacation. Made sure to understand that these were the expectations out of me for MAT AHL. Because it is essentially, even though it is different from MYP in several different ways, such as the question marks, for instance, in MYP, you will never know, okay, this question has 5 marks, this question holds for 2 or 4 marks.
Right.
And then you constantly have to go and ask the teacher that, okay, why did I get a 6? Why did I get a 7? You don't know what is that extra point that you're missing.
Right.
Here, you know exactly what you need to work on because you have marks. That's also one other advice that I would give. Look at the mark schemes online for past papers.
Right.
You understand that you get marks for method as well as your answer. So you have to show your work, which is essentially, sort of your criterion C communication. You have to show your mathematical thinking,
Right.
especially for Math AHL. You have to show that you know how to derive formulas, how to sort of apply it in the right context and such. And then what else? You will have to understand that there are lots of, it depends on your skill level, honestly. Okay, for instance, for me, functions, statistics, and probability, I know I'll have to dedicate more time towards it. So I sort of make a plan that, okay, this week, let's cover this many concepts in the book. You will
Right.
have 2 books in IVDP
Right.
format.
Yeah.
You have a core book, which is the same for both AI and AA.
Mm-hmm.
That I believe that you should do over the summer vacation. You should know that your foundational knowledge is completely there with no gaps.
Okay.
And then for AIHL, there's a book, there's a book for AHL as well. Then you can start taking off the concepts over there. Okay, studying on your own time. I usually dedicate at least an hour every day to study for MAT AHL because you have your other subjects to be worried
Right.
about as well.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's it, Nandini. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. And you guys, yeah, if you have any other questions, you know how to contact us. And thank you for listening. Alright, guys, so that's it for today. We hope that the interviews were helpful and you learned something about whatever subjects you've chosen.
Please like, share, and subscribe, guys.
And hit the bell icon.
Bell icon for further notifications.
Thank you. Bye bye.